That night, Dina was walking home from her friend's birthday party. The streets were quiet, lit only by flickering street lamps and a thin layer of mist. As she passed the city park, something caught her eye. An old Polaroid camera lying on a bench. It looked old but still working. Curious, Dina took it home. Inside, there was one film left. She decided to take a quick selfie in front of her bedroom mirror and pressed the button. Click. A few seconds later, the photo slid out. As the image slowly appeared, Dina froze. In the picture, she was smiling, but a tall dark figure stood right behind her. Though the room had been empty, she turned around, nothing. Laughing nervously, she placed the photo on her desk and went to bed. Around midnight, a soft sound woke her. Click. The camera light flickered. It had taken a picture on its own. Dina hesitated, then picked up the new photo. Her hands trembled. It showed her sleeping on the bed, and that same dark figure was now closer, standing right beside her. Panicking, she threw the camera against the wall. Before it broke, it managed to take one last picture. The final photo slid out and landed at her feet. In that image, Dina was no longer in the bed. Only the dark figure remained, smiling, holding something that looked like a human head. The next morning, her mother found Dina's room empty. On the desk were 3 Polaroid photos, and in the last one, the shadow was looking straight at the camera. 2 weeks after Dina's disappearance, her best friend Lena was still haunted by the news. Police found no trace of Dina, only the 3 Polaroid photos that now sat in an evidence box. Faces blurred by age and something darker, almost as if the ink itself was decaying. One evening, Lena received a message from an unknown number. Do you want to know what really happened to her? Meet me at the old pawn shop on 7th Street. Bring no one. Against her better judgment, she went. Inside the dusty shop, an old man sat behind the counter. Before she could speak, he muttered, "You're looking for the camera, aren't you?" Lena froze. The man opened a drawer and pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Photographer found dead after taking his own picture, 1983. He explained that the Polaroid had belonged to a man named Armand Leckler, a photographer obsessed with capturing souls through the lens. One night, Armand attempted to photograph his own reflection, but instead, his camera snapped an image of a shadow standing behind him. He was found dead the next morning. The camera vanished from police storage soon after. Lena felt her throat tighten. "So it's cursed," she whispered. The old man nodded slowly. "It doesn't just take pictures, it takes what's inside them." Suddenly, a soft sound echoed from the counter. Click. Lena looked down. The same Polaroid camera was sitting there, pointed straight at her. A fresh photo slid out. Her trembling hands picked it up. The picture showed the shop, empty. The old man was gone, and in the background, Lena was standing, smiling, holding the camera. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. No matter how many times she told herself it wasn't real, the photo from the pawn shop kept haunting her. In it, she was smiling, but she had no eyes, just black hollows where they should have been. She tried burning the picture, but as the edges curled and turned to ash, the same photo reappeared on her nightstand, perfectly intact. Click. The sound came again. Lena froze. The Polaroid camera now sat on her dresser, pointed directly at the mirror. No one had touched it. The mirror's reflection showed something behind her, a faint shadow creeping closer. Click. Another photo slid out. This time, Lena saw herself in the mirror, but the reflection was smiling differently, wider, unnatural, as if the reflection had a mind of its own. Panicking, she covered the mirror with a blanket and grabbed the camera. But when she looked through the viewfinder, the reflection was still there, moving, even though she stood perfectly still. Then, the reflection raised its hand and waved. Lena screamed and smashed the mirror, but in every shard, she saw tiny reflections of herself, each one smiling. Click. The camera flashed one final time before the lights went out. When the police entered Lena's apartment the next morning, they found shattered glass everywhere and a Polaroid photo lying in the middle of the floor. In the picture, Lena was standing inside the mirror, her face pressed against the glass, as if begging to be let out. 3 months later, both Dina and Lena were officially declared missing. Their cases were quietly closed, but the cursed camera and mirror shards were later sold at an estate auction, mixed in with other unclaimed items. That's how Evan, a freelance photographer, came to own them. He thought it was fate, a vintage Polaroid for only $20. He loved collecting old cameras. When he brought it home, he noticed a faint name carved under the lens, a Leckler. He shrugged it off, cleaned the dust, and placed it on his desk beside the mirror shards he'd also bought. arranged like a small mosaic. That night, as Evan tested the Polaroid, he realized something strange. No matter what he photographed, a figure always appeared in the background, sometimes blurry, sometimes almost clear, always watching. He thought it was a reflection glitch, until he took a photo of his own reflection in the mirror pieces. Click. The image printed slowly. When it fully developed, Evan's smile faded. His reflection was grinning back, but the figure behind him, now perfectly visible, was Lena. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and hollow, but she was holding the same camera. Suddenly, the Polaroid began clicking on its own, over and over. Dozens of photos spilled onto the floor. Each photo showed Evan's apartment, but in every one, he was slightly missing. His hand, his face, his shadow disappearing piece by piece. The last photo slid out. In it, Evan's room was empty. Only the camera sat on the desk, and in the cracked mirror behind it, 3 figures could be seen standing: Dina, Lena, and Evan, smiling at whoever dared to look. A young journalist named Maya stumbled upon an online post titled, "The Lost Polaroid Files, 3 Missing Photographers." The post contained scanned versions of the same disturbing photos: Dina, Lena, and Evan, all frozen in impossible poses, their eyes empty, their smiles wrong. People said whoever viewed all the photos in sequence would feel someone watching from behind them. Maya didn't believe it. Curiosity led her to a storage auction in a small town outside Portland. There, inside a dust-covered box labeled Evidence Room Case Number 045, she found it. The same Polaroid camera, scratched but intact. She smiled. "Perfect for my article," she whispered. But when she picked it up, she noticed a faint whisper echoing from inside the lens, almost like breathing. At midnight, she decided to test it. Click. The picture printed slowly, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. When the image cleared, she felt her heart stop. It was her, standing in her apartment, but behind her, in the reflection of her window, stood 3 figures. Their faces were blurry, but their silhouettes were unmistakable. Dina, Lena, Evan. She dropped the camera. It hit the floor, but instead of breaking, it took another picture on its own. Click. The new photo slid out, still developing. This time, the image showed her staring into the camera, eyes wide in fear, and right beside her, another hand was resting on her shoulder, a hand that wasn't hers. She backed away, trembling, but then the Polaroid's light began to flash rapidly, faster and faster. Every flash revealed a shadow closer until, click, the light went out. When her editor arrived at Maya's apartment the next morning, the room was empty, except for a pile of fresh Polaroid photos scattered across the floor. The last photo showed the camera sitting alone, and reflected in its lens, someone new was standing there, a 4th face, smiling. Maya's. The end, or maybe not. Every few years, the cursed Polaroid is said to reappear in a pawn shop, waiting for its next owner. And if you ever hear a camera click in the dark, don't turn around. It's been 10 years since the last known victim, Maya, vanished. Most believed the story of the cursed Polaroid was just an urban legend, until a film restorer named Jonas discovered something strange at an old photo lab scheduled for demolition. Inside a sealed drawer, covered in dust and cobwebs, he found a roll of undeveloped film labeled Property of A. Leckler -1983. He thought it was just a relic, but when he held it under the light, faint silhouettes appeared on the negatives, faces, distorted and stretched as if screaming from inside the film. Jonas decided to restore it. As the photos began to develop, his lab lights flickered. Each frame showed the same scene, a man standing before a mirror, camera in hand. But in every picture, the man's reflection moved differently than he did. By the 10th photo, the reflection had turned completely around, facing the camera, staring directly at him. That's when the power went out. Jonas lit a candle and saw a fresh photo slowly slide out of a camera he didn't own, sitting on the counter. Click. He picked it up, shaking. The photo showed his own lab, but the reflection in the window wasn't his. It was Maya, smiling faintly, her hand pressed against the glass. Behind her, the same Polaroid camera glowed dimly in the dark. Jonas ran to the window. Nothing, only his reflection staring back, until it blinked. Click. When workers entered the lab the next morning, Jonas was gone, but a single photograph remained in the developing tray. It showed the same darkroom, now empty, except for a new roll of film, labeled in fresh ink, Property of J. Whitmore, 2025. 3 days after Jonas vanished, the roll of film labeled Property of J. Whitmore, 2025 was sold online. The beer was Clara Whitmore, a 22-year-old photography student, Jonas's niece. She didn't believe in curses. She just wanted to finish her late uncle's project. At 2 a.m., Clara locked herself in the university darkroom. She loaded the film carefully, humming to calm her nerves. But as the first photo began to develop, the air grew cold. The red light above her flickered, and faint whispers echoed through the ventilation. Soft, overlapping voices repeating one word: closer. The first print appeared, an image of a man's back, standing in front of a mirror. The next photo showed him turning. The third, he was now staring straight ahead. By the fourth, his reflection was missing. Then the whispers grew louder. Turn around. Clara froze. The mirror on the darkroom wall, the one she'd covered with a cloth, now bulged outward, as if something behind it was pushing to get out. Click. Her camera, untouched, had taken a picture by itself. The developed photo slid out, dripping with dark chemicals. It showed the room exactly as it was now, except in the corner, a shadow stood right behind her. Clara turned. Nothing. She tried to run, but the door wouldn't budge. Every surface began to reflect her. The metal sink, the glass bottles, the film trays, and in every reflection, she wasn't alone. Something dark and tall loomed behind her, head tilted, eyes like empty holes. Click, click, click. The photos flooded from the camera, covering the floor like black leaves. Each one showed Clara fading, her body dissolving into streaks of shadow. When campus security entered the darkroom the next morning, they found it silent, the floor wet, the air heavy with chemicals. On the wall, hundreds of Polaroid photos hung neatly in rows. In each photo, Clara was a little less visible. In the last one, only her camera remained, and under it, written in smeared ink, one more exposure. After Clara's disappearance, the university sealed the darkroom, but 2 weeks later, an anonymous box arrived at the campus mailroom. Inside was a Polaroid camera, and a note that read, "It must end with light. Do not use flash. Midnight only." The package was signed, a Leckler, but Armand Leckler, the original owner, had been dead for 40 years. Professor Nathan Cole, who taught photographic history, took the camera for research. He believed the curse was psychological, mass hysteria through imagery, he called it. That night, he decided to test the note's instructions inside the sealed darkroom. He set up candles, mirrors, and a single film pack, the same vintage type from 1983. At exactly midnight, he whispered, "Show me the truth." Click. The first photo printed, an empty room. The second, faint shadows on the wall. The third, someone standing behind him, blurred, like a reflection caught mid-motion. Professor Cole kept shooting, his breath trembling. Each photo grew darker, the figure coming closer. Then, from behind the lens, a voice whispered, not through air, but through the shutter itself, "One final exposure. Trade one soul for all." Cole's hands shook. He realized the camera didn't take images, it stored souls, layer by layer, until the film overflowed. The last film sheet was already loaded. If he took one more photo, the curse could end, but only if someone replaced the trapped souls inside. He stared at the camera. "If that's what it takes," he whispered. Click. A blinding flash filled the room, then silence. When the dean entered the darkroom the next morning, the candles were melted to the floor, and the camera sat in the center of a perfect circle of light. Professor Cole was gone. On the wall hung a single Polaroid photo, showing all the victims: Dina, Lena, Evan, Clara, and Cole, standing together in the glow, finally looking at peace. The shadow behind them was gone, but at the bottom of the photo, one faint reflection remained, someone holding the camera, and their face was unfamiliar. The signature below read, Maya Leckler. The photo discovered in the sealed darkroom caused panic across the university. Authorities dismissed it as a hoax, but the signature at the bottom couldn't be ignored. Maya Leckler. An old journalist recognized the name. Maya was the last person who vanished 10 years earlier while investigating the cursed Polaroid. But Leckler? That was the surname of the man who created the camera, Armand Leckler. Digging through archives, the journalist found something chilling. Armand never had children, but his younger sister, Margot, fled to the US after his death, and she had one daughter. Her name, Maya. Maya had known about her uncle's soul photography experiments all her life, but she never believed the rumors until she found the Polaroid at a pawn shop. When she vanished, it wasn't because the curse took her. It was because she finished what her uncle started. Inside Armand's hidden journals, Maya discovered the truth. The camera wasn't cursed, it was a vessel. built to capture the human essence and preserve it between worlds. Each photo fed the lens with fragments of souls, until it could create one perfect image, a true photograph of eternity. But to seal the vessel, it needed a keeper, someone with Leckler blood. Maya accepted that role. At 3:33 a.m., a surveillance camera near the old campus caught a brief footage. A woman walking into the sealed photography wing, carrying a Polaroid camera glowing faintly blue. The lights inside flickered, one by one, as she passed, and then she looked straight into the security camera and smiled. The feed cut to static. When it resumed, only an empty hallway remained, but on the floor, a new Polaroid lay face up. The image showed Maya standing inside the mirror, holding the camera with both hands, whispering, "Every light needs a shadow." That photo now sits in a museum storage box labeled, "The Leckler Collection. Do not expose to light." And yet sometimes, when the box is opened for inspection, staff claim to hear a faint click inside, like a shutter closing. The Leckler Collection became one of the most controversial exhibits in the National Museum of Occult Artifacts. Behind a thick glass case, under constant low light, rested the infamous Polaroid camera, alongside hundreds of sealed photographs, each labeled unknown subject. Visitors weren't allowed to use flash photography near it, but one night, during a private tour, the lights flickered, and a single click echoed from inside the display case. Security rushed in. The glass was unbroken, yet a new Polaroid sat inside, freshly printed, still warm. It showed the museum room itself, but empty. Every object, every photo, every trace of the exhibit was gone. Only one figure remained in the frame, a woman, standing where the display case should be, her face blurred, her eyes open too wide. Her name tag read, Maya Leckler. The next morning, the museum's head curator, Dr. Alara Voss, arrived to investigate. When she opened the sealed archive, she found something worse. All 214 photographs from the Leckler collection had changed overnight. Each now showed the same image, a dark hallway ending in a faint light. And if you looked closely, you could see shadows walking toward you, one step closer in every photo. Alara tried to destroy them, but every attempt failed. When she burned one, the ashes formed new film sheets. When she shredded another, it reappeared inside the Polaroid camera, waiting to be developed. Then came the whisper, low at first, like static from an old speaker. Exposure begins at dusk. That night, the museum's CCTV recorded something no one could explain. Every light went out. Every reflective surface mirrors, glass, display cases, began to glow faintly, as if something inside them was waking up. The final recording from the control room showed Alara staring into a security monitor, her reflection smiling even though she wasn't. Click. When the building reopened the next day, the staff was gone. All that remained were rows of Polaroid photos taped to the walls, each showing the museum's corridors, each one darker than the last. And at the end of the hall, in the final photo, Maya Leckler stood holding the camera, extending it toward whoever dared to look. At the bottom of the photo, written in light scratches, 6 months after the National Museum of Occult Artifacts was permanently shut down, a security guard named Rafael Ortiz was assigned to guard the abandoned site. The museum had been sealed, power cut off, but he was paid well, too well. He thought for watching over empty halls. On his first night, everything was quiet. Dust hung in the air. The exhibits stood under thick sheets, and yet every few hours, Rafael swore he heard it. That soft mechanical sound, faint but clear. Click. He followed the noise to the west wing, the room where the Leckler collection used to be. The glass case was empty, the lights dead. Only the faint shape of a camera outline remained on the dust-covered pedestal. Then his flashlight flickered. On the wall behind the pedestal hung a single Polaroid photo, fresh and clean. It showed him, standing in that exact room. The timestamp in the corner read, 10:47 p.m., the current time. Raphael's hands trembled. He turned slowly toward the hall. In the distance, he saw a figure, pale and still, holding a camera glowing faintly blue. He raised his radio. Control, I've got a trespasser. Click. The radio died. The lights exploded, and then silence. When backup arrived the next morning, the west wing was empty. No sign of Raphael, but the Polaroid photo had changed. Now it showed two people standing in the room, Raphael and the pale woman behind him. Later that week, museum officials received a package with no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid camera and a note written in elegant cursive, for display only. Do not attempt to take a picture. It remembers. The camera arrived in a plain wooden crate. No sound, no ticking, no light. just the cold weight of something that felt alive. The museum, now a restricted archive facility, stored it in a private vault. Only one curator had clearance to open it, Dr. Lillian Crane, an expert in haunted objects and former apprentice of Dr. Alara Voss, one of the disappeared. She'd read every file, every report, every missing person's name connected to the Leckler camera. But what disturbed her most wasn't the photos. It was the mirror found behind the display, a mirror that showed two reflections whenever you looked into it. That night, she decided to examine both artifacts together. She placed the Polaroid on a table, the mirror facing it. No flash, no film, just the soft hum of her recording device. Then, click, the Polaroid fired by itself. The camera had no film loaded, yet something slid from the slot. A blank sheet that slowly darkened. Lillian gasped as the image formed. It showed the vault, right now, from an impossible angle, as if taken by someone standing inside the mirror. Her reflection smiled. She didn't. Click. Another image printed. This time, the reflection had stepped forward, halfway out of the mirror. Its eyes hollow, its face stretched and pale. Behind it, shadows of every previous victim. Standing still, heads tilted. The temperature dropped. Her recorder began to distort. From inside the static, a whisper emerged. Every photo is a doorway. Every frame needs someone on the other side. The reflection reached the surface and smiled wider. Click. The lights burst. The recording ended. 2 days later, a maintenance worker found the vault door open. Dr. Crane was gone. The camera sat alone on the table, lens facing the mirror, and inside the mirror's glass, a faint new face had appeared, staring outward. Next to the camera lay a photograph, still fresh. It showed the vault exactly as it was, but from your point of view, as if someone had just taken your picture. The vault was sealed after Dr. Lillian Crane's disappearance. Every entrance welded shut, but 3 years later, a group of restoration students were assigned to digitize the museum's lost archives. Among the boxes labeled unverified audio evidence, they found one tape. The label read, in Lillian's handwriting, "Last exposure. Do not play after midnight." They played it anyway. At first, there was only static. Then came the sound of breathing, followed by a whisper, soft and distant. "Don't look into the glass. It looks back." The students laughed nervously, thinking it was part of a hoax. But as the recording continued, a faint clicking noise repeated behind her voice. Click, click, click. Then another voice began to overlap hers. Deeper, older, male. It said only one thing. "Every picture you see has already seen you." Suddenly, the studio lights flickered. On the computer screen, the waveform began to shift on its own, morphing into a faint black and white image. A Polaroid photo developing in real time. The photo showed the restoration room. The students froze, because in the image, there were 5 figures standing, but only 4 of them were in the room. The 5th figure held a camera. The flash went off. Click. The recording stopped. All power in the lab went out. When the building reopened the next morning, the computers were wiped clean. Only one file remained. Its thumbnail was a single photo, the same black and white image of the students, now all smiling. In the reflection of the monitor behind them, a woman in a white coat could be seen, Dr. Lillian Crane, and beside her stood Maya Leckler, whispering into her ear. That image now loops endlessly on the museum's archive server. It cannot be deleted, copied, or corrupted. Every attempt to view it causes the webcam to activate by itself and take one last photo. The file name changes each time it's opened. Thelist photo _ your name closing parenthesis .jpg. The end. Or maybe, the next beginning is already developing.